Hello everyone. The learning objective for today is students will be able to identify and explain an unknown using an electromagnetic spectrum. Please take out your notebooks to write notes and open IS-4 Experience 2 Nearpod. Thank you. Our objective for today is students will be able to identify and explain an unknown using an electromagnetic spectrum. Please take out your notebooks to write notes. Our warm-up for today is, if hydrogen has only one electron, why do you think hydrogen's spectrum has multiple colors? Look at the picture for reference. This is the same picture we used to determine the different colors that hydrogen produces. If you remember from our lab, we learned that electrons are responsible for producing photons. But hydrogen only has one electron. So why is it that this one electron is producing three different colors? Don't look up the answer. There are answers already available. The goal for this is for you to be the scientist and try to come up with an explanation for your data. The title for our notes is IS-4 Experience 2, Atomic Emission Spectra and the Bohr Model. When an element absorbs energy in a gaseous state, electrons become excited and the atom becomes unstable. When the electrons release energy, the atom can emit light. The light an element emits is composed of specific wavelengths of light. On the bottom of this slide is a transverse wave. There are various vocabulary words associated with a transverse wave. First, we have peaks. Each of these peaks are called crests or troughs, depending on which direction you are viewing the peak. Amplitude is the distance from the center of the wave, which is essentially if the wave item was not moving, up to the top point of a peak. Wavelength is the distance between two peaks of a wave, and we use the Greek letter lambda as a variable for wavelength. Amplitude and frequency, where frequency also has the Greek letter nu. The symbol looks like our symbol for the letter V, but this is not the letter V and looks slightly different. Amplitude and frequency examples shown here indicate a few things. First off, the low amplitude is the height of the wave, and frequency is how many waves there are in the same distance. You can see low amplitude and high frequency versus high amplitude and low frequency, and vice versa. Next, we have some sentences. Please only draw the sentences in your notes. Do not draw the electromagnetic spectrum picture down below. The electromagnetic radiation is energy that travels as a transverse wave. The electromagnetic spectrum is a list of the various types of electromagnetic radiation, which is shown below. Let's go through some of these examples. The electromagnetic spectrum in this particular picture shows us in order from highest energy or smallest wavelength or largest frequency through the smallest energy, largest wavelength, or smallest frequency. The names of these types of electromagnetic radiation come from the source or type of use. Let's go through these. Cosmic radiation comes from the sun. Gamma radiation, where the word gamma is the third letter of the Greek alphabet. This is typically a type of radiation that comes from nuclear material. X-ray radiation is usually used to picture bones, and you've probably had an X-ray done on your teeth at the dentist. Ultraviolet radiation is typically a type of radiation that comes from the sun. Ultraviolet radiation can be separated into three different types: depending on the wavelength. Each of these types of ultraviolet radiation do different things to human skin. When you purchase sunscreen, make sure to purchase broad spectrum, which refers to the fact that all of the spectrum of ultraviolet radiation has been blocked and is protecting you from it. Then we get into the human visible spectrum. Notice that ultraviolet is directly next to the word violet, which we describe at around 400 nanometers. Red is around 700 nanometers. After that, we get into infrared. All objects with any sort of temperature have infrared radiation, including you. Whenever a molecule moves, it generates infrared radiation. We can detect this infrared radiation and use it in things like infrared cameras, thermometers, and chemical equipment. Continuing down, we have microwaves, which can be used for anything including radars, microwave ovens, even machines that we use in the hospital for imaging. Radio waves are used for all sorts of things, including the internet, different types of Wi-Fi signals, TV signals, your cell phone signals, and so forth. And lastly, alternating currents. Alternating currents is where electricity moves at a very large wavelength. This was discovered by Nikola Tesla many years ago. Alternating currents is what we use in our current electricity systems above our heads to move electricity over large distances. In your home, we use direct current, so there has to be a transformer nearby to change alternating current, or AC, into direct current, or DC. Our last line of sentences talks about the colors of the rainbow from low energy to high energy. Our next slide gets into some math. The equation for the speed of light is c equals lambda times nu, where c equals 3.0 times 10 to the 17th nanometers per second, which is the speed of light in a vacuum only. If light goes through some other object like air, water, etc., light slows down. A particle of light is called a photon. The amount of energy a photon contains uses the equation E equals h nu, where h is Planck's constant, 6.63 times 10 to the negative 34th joules times seconds. Now let's do a little bit of algebra. Since we know E equals h times nu, and we can use c equals lambda times nu, and rearrange to become nu equals c divided by lambda, we can substitute the Greek letter nu, and we get E equals hc divided by lambda. What does that mean? The energy is greater as the wavelength gets smaller, or as the frequency gets bigger. For example, ultraviolet, which has a wavelength of less than 400 nanometers, has more energy than infrared, with a wavelength of greater than 700 nanometers. Again, please only write the sentences in your notes. The atomic emission spectrum is the pattern formed when light emitted by an element is separated into the different wavelengths it contains. A spectroscope is a tool that uses a prism to separate light into its individual colors. Below, you can see some examples between an incandescent light bulb and a hydrogen spectrum lamp. A prism is typically a triangular crystal that can separate light. It does work very well and is typically naturally forming, but it can be rather expensive. Nowadays, we use diffraction gratings, which are pieces of transparent plastic with tiny cuts in them to separate the light. What is the identity of the element that produced the unknown emission spectrum? What information does the spectrum give about the source of the element? Please use the following sentence frames to answer the question. The unknown is blank. The spectrum indicates blank. Please open the picture. You may need to zoom out. The unknown is at the top. The remaining are knowns, meaning we know the names of these because we already knew what they were. Match the unknown to the ones below. The answer is strontium, the one on the bottom. Now that we know the unknown, let's try to look at the second question. What information does the spectrum give about the source of the element? In a previous question, we talked about hydrogen having only a few colors. In this example of hydrogen spectrum, there are 4 colors. Strontium clearly has many more than 4 colors. We also learned that hydrogen only has 1 electron, and the electrons absorb energy and emit that energy in the form of a photon. So, why does strontium have so many more colors than hydrogen does? A sample answer is, the spectrum indicates there are many electrons, and those electrons absorb and emit different amounts of energy. And lastly, did you meet the learning objective for today? Choose one of the answers to let me know how you did. And that's it for today's lesson. Thank you everyone, and I'll see you next time.